They say the end of the world will be loud, fire and brimstone. But sometimes it arrives on a quiet Sunday morning, while the sprinklers hiss and the coffee brews. Welcome to Dust and Echoes. My name is James Cawley, and every week I bring you a new, original story. Stories drawn from that strange place where memory, myth, and the things we try not to name all intersect. If you enjoy what you hear, leaving a comment on Apple Podcasts, Audible, or Spotify helps me more than you know. Growing this podcast is the sure way to keep this thing going. So take a minute today and share your favorite episode with a friend. Tonight's story explores how the familiar comforts of suburbia can shatter in a single heartbeat. This is a story about the terrifying fragility of the lives we build, the primal drive of a father to protect his child, and the race against a setting sun. And what happens when the only safety left is a rock floating in the sky, and the bridge that gets you there is about to burn. I call this story Island in the Sky. The world ended while Jed Thorne was looking for a matching sock. It was a mundane tragedy to precede a global one. He sat on the edge of the king-sized mattress. One navy argyle sock was pulled halfway up his calf. The other was nowhere to be found. The ceiling fan spun overhead. It cut through the stagnant air of the bedroom. Even at this hour, the heat of the high desert summer was pressing against the window panes. It demanded entry. The news was on the television in the corner. The volume was set to a low hum. It had become the background noise of their lives for the last month. It was a low-frequency vibration of anxiety that made his teeth ache. It started with reports of a hemorrhagic flu in Las Vegas. They were locked down inside the casinos. Then came the grainy cell phone footage of civil unrest in Los Angeles. Fires burned on the 405. Crowds ran toward police lines instead of away. Jed ignored it. Or he tried to. He was a senior systems analyst for a logistics firm. His entire career was built on the principle that chaos could be managed, sorted, and filed. He compartmentalized the panic. He told himself it was election year hysteria. He abandoned the search for the sock and walked to the window. He pushed aside the sheer curtain. Below, the cul-de-sac was bathed in the harsh, clarifying light of a Utah morning. It looked picture perfect. The lawns were emerald green, fed by secondary water systems. Mrs. Gable's hydrangeas were blooming in explosive clusters of blue. A sprinkler system 2 houses down hissed rhythmically. It scattered diamonds across the pavement. But there was a tension in the air, a static charge that raised the hair on his arms. The street was too quiet. No cars moving, no dogs barking. Just the heat. "Daddy?" Jed turned. Chloe shuffled into the room. She rubbed sleep from her eyes with the back of a small hand. She was 6 years old, a chaotic mix of blonde tangles and stubbornness. She was holding up her Sunday dress, the blue one with the lace collar that she detested. "It's itchy," she announced. Her voice was thick with morning grogginess. "It's church, Bug," Jed said. He forced a smile that felt like it might crack the dry skin of his lips. "God likes itchy. It builds character. Besides, Mom isn't here to negotiate with you, so you're stuck with my rules." Chloe frowned. She dropped the dress on the floor. "I miss Mommy." He looked at the empty pillow on the bed. Lily was 300 miles south in Moab. She was on a girls' camping trip with her old college roommates. It was supposed to be a weekend of hiking the Red Rocks and spa treatments. It was a break from the mounting tension of the current state of the world. Since all this began, his wife had been on edge. This was good for her. As a nurse, she still held trauma from the pandemic. This new situation developing was becoming too similar. He checked his phone. No new texts. But he knew service was limited where they were camping at Dead Horse Point State Park. The last one she sent was a selfie at Delicate Arch. It said, "Wish you and Chloe were here. Love you both so much." "She'll be back tomorrow," Jed promised. "Now go brush your teeth and hurry. We don't want to be late for sacrament meeting." Chloe scurried off toward the bathroom. Jed turned back to the window. Movement caught his eye. Down on the street, Mrs. Gable was running. She was the 70-year-old widow from 4B who baked cinnamon rolls for the block parties. She wasn't jogging. She was sprinting, She was moving with a desperate, frantic speed that shouldn't have been possible for a woman with a double hip replacement. She was barefoot. Her floral housecoat flapped behind her like a broken wing. Behind her was Henderson. Mr. Henderson, the HOA president, the man who measured grass height with a ruler and left passive-aggressive notes on windshields. He was running too. He was shirtless. His skin, usually pale and sunburned, was a mottled gray. It was bruised with dark, subsurface pooling. He ran on all fours for a step. Then he surged upright. "What the hell?" Jed whispered. He watched, paralyzed, as Henderson closed the gap. He looked like a missile. He tackled Mrs. Gable on the concrete of her driveway. The sound of her head hitting the pavement was audible, even through the double-paned glass. A wet, sickening thwack. They rolled. Henderson pinned her. He didn't punch her. He didn't choke her. He buried his face in the soft flesh where her neck met her shoulder. Mrs. Gable's legs kicked once, twice, then went limp. Blood sprayed across the pristine white siding of the Gable's garage. Bright, arterial red. It looked impossibly vibrant against the suburban backdrop. Jed froze. His brain tried to process the data, but the file was corrupted. Assault, murder, meth psychosis. Then he remembered the movies. The B-movies he watched late at night when Lily was asleep. The shaky cam footage, the fast zombies, the infected. He had always laughed at those films. Society doesn't collapse that fast, he used to argue. We have police. We have structure. He was wrong. "Daddy, the TV stopped." Jed spun around. Chloe was standing in the doorway. A toothbrush hung from her mouth. Foam dripped onto her chin. The television screen was black. No test pattern. No "please stand by." Just the electronic void. From outside, a scream ripped through the morning air. It was the sound of vocal cords tearing under maximum fatal stress. Jed moved. He grabbed Chloe. He picked her up so fast she dropped her toothbrush. He pressed her face into his shoulder, shielding her eyes. "Don't look," he ordered. His voice was unrecognizable, a guttural command that brooked no argument. "Chloe, do not look at the window." Downstairs, the front door. The sound of the heavy oak frame splintering inward. The shatter of the decorative glass inlay. Jed's heart hammered a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He motioned for her to follow him. She could see the panic on his face. The toothbrush dropped to the floor. "Daddy, what's wrong? What was that?" he whispered. "Sweetheart, I need you to listen to me." His breath came in short, sharp gasps as he took her into his bedroom and opened the closet door. "Everything's going to be okay, but Daddy needs you to hide in the closet, under the blankets. Don't come out until I say to." Chloe was trembling. "I'm scared," she stammered. He shoved her into the walk-in closet. He quietly closed the door, hearing the click of the latch. The house was unnervingly silent, but he could hear muffled chaos outside, the sound of the world beginning to die. Sweating and trying to stay quiet, he looked for a weapon. Nothing in the bedroom. He didn't own a gun. His wife didn't want one in the house. The baseball bat was in the garage. Just a stack of books on the nightstand and the useless alarm clock. He peeked out into the hallway. Henderson was at the bottom of the stairs. He was looking up, directly at him, like he was waiting. His face was a ruin. Mrs. Gable's blood masked his chin and chest, dripping onto the foyer rug. But it was the eyes that stopped Jed's breath. They weren't glazed or vacant. They were frantic. The pupils were blown wide, eclipsing the iris entirely. They turned his eyes into black pits. The whites were shot through with red. Hemorrhagic fever. He looked like an animal that had been set on fire from the inside. "Henderson, I saw what you did. I called the police and they are on the way, and I have a gun." Jed lied. He tried to act tough, but his voice cracked. "You need to get the hell out of my house." Henderson didn't speak. He hissed. A wet, rattling exhalation of air through bloody teeth. And then he charged. He took the stairs 3 at a time. He moved with a terrifying, fluid agility. Jed backed up. He tripped over the laundry basket left in the hall. He fell hard. His elbow struck the floor. His hand landed on the heavy brass base of an ugly antique lamp Lily had bought at an estate sale. He gripped the cold metal. Henderson launched himself off the top step. He was a projectile of teeth and rage. Jed swung the lamp with both hands. He screamed as he did it. Crunch! The brass connected with Henderson's temple. It wasn't a clean sound. It was the sound of a melon dropped on concrete. The force of the blow knocked Henderson sideways. He crashed into the drywall, leaving a hole. The thing that was his neighbor scurried back to him like a rabid, starving animal. It lunged. It landed on top of Jed before he could swing the lamp. He was heavy. He was burning hot. A fever radiated through his skin that felt like an oven door opening. He smelled of blood, rot, and ammonia. He was still snapping. His jaw clicked. He gnashed blindly, trying to find purchase on Jed's arm. Get off! Jed roared. He jammed his forearm against Henderson's throat, pushing the snapping teeth away. The thing regurgitated gore and strips of ripped flesh onto Jed's chest. His shattered teeth were inches from his forearm, snapping. Its eyes were wide and it made a horrific screeching noise. His hand tightened on the lamp. I'm sorry. He swung with all his strength. The heavy corner of the base smashed into Henderson's head. He heaved and pushed the man off of him. It was unfazed and began once again towards him. He brought the lamp down again, and again, and again. He didn't stop until the snapping ceased. He didn't stop until the face of the HOA president was no longer a face. It was just wet geometry and bone. Jed scrambled backward. He crab-walked on his hands and heels until his back hit the wall. He sat there gasping. His chest heaved. He was covered in blood that wasn't his. He started to shake and realized he was still holding the gore-encrusted lamp. He let go. The house was silent. But outside he heard an explosion, gunshots and screaming. Then the sound of the closet door clicking open. Chloe peeked around the bedroom doorframe. Her one visible blue eye was wide and unblinking. She saw the blood. She saw the smashed face of their neighbor. The lamp. She saw everything. Jed felt a piece of himself die right then. The part that was soft. The part that believed in rules. He stood up. He glanced down at the smashed door down the stairs. He didn't wipe the blood off. There was no point. The world of clean shirts was gone. He knelt and grabbed her by the shoulders. She started to cry. Listen to me, Bug. You need to listen to me. I don't know what's happening, but we need to leave and find help. He grabbed her little hand tight. They went down the stairs and entered the apocalypse together. Outside, the view that made them fall in love with the house made his stomach turn to liquid. Below, the streets of Salt Lake City were a slaughterhouse of chaos. Fires burned everywhere. Smoke rose in black, oily pillars from downtown. It blotted out the sun and cast the valley in a sickly, bruised twilight. Sirens wailed from every direction. On the avenue below, he saw a Subaru with a family trapped inside. They were surrounded by more people acting like Mr. Henderson. They were bashing at the windows. He could see the I-15 corridor was stuck in a gridlock of wrecks, violence, attacks, and chaos. The city was a trap. Jed wouldn't get a mile in the minivan. It was low, soft, and nearly out of gas. Where would they go anyway? But before he finished the thought, he heard feet slapping the asphalt. One of them was coming for them. He grabbed Chloe's hand and ran. They cut through backyards. They vaulted fences. They dragged through rose bushes that tore at his pants. Then he saw the Blue Lives Matter flag. If there was one guy in his neighborhood that could help right now, it was Miller. The guy was a conspiracy theorist and a nuisance. But he drove a lifted, decked-out Toyota Land Cruiser and had an armory in his basement that he loved to show off. Miller was on his front porch, or what was left of him. He was draped over the railing. His throat was torn out. His AR-15 lay uselessly in the grass below. Jed covered his daughter's eyes with a bloody hand. Jed looked past him at the truck. The keys were in the ignition. The engine was idling. Miller had been ready to run himself. He just hadn't been fast enough. Get in, Jed ordered. Buckle up. Put your head down between your knees. He climbed into the driver's seat. The cab smelled like Marlboros and gun oil. He threw the heavy truck into gear and jumped the curb. He drove across the manicured lawns of the neighborhood. He smashed through white picket fences. He bypassed the gridlocked street where neighbors were ripping other neighbors out of cars. He bit his lip as they sped past a woman running towards them screaming for help. He saw 5 of them slam into her in the rearview mirror. The Toyota was a tank. He used it to smash through yards and drive across the golf course. He had to get them out of the city. Cutting around the back of a target, he could see the eastbound on-ramp for Interstate 80. He took one look at the wall of stalled steel and swerved off into the drainage ditch. It climbed the embankment to the old closed frontage road, now overgrown with grass and sagebrush. He headed south. The radio was useless. Every station was playing the emergency broadcast system tone. It screeched like a banshee. Jed looked at the CB radio mounted on the dash. He grabbed the mic. His hands were slick with sweat and dried blood. He spun the dial. Channel 9. Screaming, pure, unfiltered terror. Channel 19. Truckers yelling. He spun the dial higher, searching for authority, searching for a plan. All the channels were pure chaos. But then he found exactly the channel he was looking for. A voice, clear, authoritative, trembling. "This is Officer Daggett. Can anyone hear me? Moab needs immediate National Guard response. If you are receiving this, do not attempt to enter the city limits." Jed's blood ran cold. The steering wheel creaked under his grip. "Lily," he whispered. Then another voice cut in, harder, cold, military cadence. "This is Officer Young, Utah Highway Patrol. Listen to me. Get to Dead Horse Point. The peninsula is a natural fortress. We have the National Guard reserves. We have water. There are survivors here." Chloe looked up. "Mama." Jed pressed the gas pedal. The Land Cruiser roared. The speedometer climbed to 80 on the empty frontage road. "Get here fast. We have a big problem," Officer Young's voice said. It was distorted by static, but the urgency cut through. "They are showing up here, and we can see thousands of them heading this way from down below. It's like they can sense the group of us up here. If too many make it up here at once, we can't hold them back. At sundown. Repeat. At sundown. We are blowing the neck." Jed stared at the radio. He remembered a family trip they took when Chloe was a baby, where they visited Dead Horse Point State Park. Dead Horse Point was an island in the sky, a mesa surrounded by thousands of feet of sheer cliff walls on all sides. The only way onto the mesa was called the Neck, a narrow strip of land, barely 30 yards wide. It connected the Dead Horse Point Peninsula to the main mesa. If they blew it, the point would become a true island, surrounded by 2,000-foot cliffs, accessible only by air, impenetrable. It was perfect. "We have 12 pounds of C4 rigged to the narrowest point," Young said. "We are severing the land bridge at sundown. If you are human, and you can hear this, get here. If you are not across the neck by sundown, you are on your own. May God help us all." Jed looked at the clock on the dash. 10:30 a.m. He looked at the horizon. The sun was high, blazing white in the sky. Sunset this time of year was about 9 p.m. 10 hours, 300 miles, normally a 4-hour drive, but between them and salvation was absolute chaos. "Chloe," Jed said. She didn't turn. She was clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Chloe, look at me." She turned slowly. Her eyes were glassy. "We are going to get Mommy," Jed said. "We have a mission. Do you understand? We have to be fast." She nodded. The first hour was a blur of adrenaline and dust. They bypassed the cities, sticking to the utility roads that ran beneath the massive power lines. Provo was a mushroom cloud of black smoke to the east. But the isolation didn't last. The geography of Utah funneled everything south. The mountains squeezed the roads into narrow canyons. The frontage road ended. Jed was forced onto Highway 6. It was a nightmare. Cars were abandoned in the middle of the road, doors open, luggage spilled. Jed wove the heavy truck through the obstacle course. He mounted the shoulder. He crushed plastic bumpers. The gas gauge hovered just below a quarter tank. The Land Cruiser guzzled fuel like a beast. Ahead, the highway dipped into a small valley. An isolated gas station sat off the road, a relic from the 90s with peeling paint. There was only one other car there, a sedan parked at the far pump. The sedan's doors were closed. The interior was painted red. Blood splattered the windows from the inside out. Jed slowed the truck. His pulse thumped in his throat. "Listen to me very carefully," he said. He pulled the truck up to the pump furthest from the store. "We are going to be very, very quiet." He rolled up all the windows. He reached into the back seat floorboard and grabbed the large tire iron Miller kept with the jack. It was cold and heavy in his hand. "Keep your eyes open," he told her. "Look in all directions. If you see anyone, you scream, okay?" She nodded. Her chest hitched with a shallow breath. Jed stepped out. The heat hit him instantly, a dry, oppressive wall of 100-degree air. It smelled of sagebrush and gasoline. He moved cautiously to the pump. He slid the credit card in. The screen flickered. Authorizing. Jed exhaled. He lifted the nozzle and jammed it into the tank. The pump whirred to life, but the flow was agonizingly slow. He looked over at the bloody sedan. It was motionless. The windows were too dark with gore to see if anyone, or anything, was still inside. The gas was taking forever. The slow ticking of the pump was the only sound in the valley. It amplified the silence, making the lack of wind feel heavy. Chloe needed water. He looked at the station store. The open sign was unlit. The glass door was smeared with something dark near the handle. "Daddy?" Chloe whispered through the glass. She was hyperventilating, fogging the window. Jed signed to her, a finger to his lips. "Shh. Be right back." He stepped away from the pump. His shoes crunched on the gravel. The sound echoed like gunshots in the quiet air. He winced. He stepped carefully toward the store entrance. Some jerky, candy bars, Gatorade. Just grab and go. He reached for the door handle. A muffled scream from the truck. Jed spun around. From the open garage bay attached to the station, a figure stumbled out. A mechanic. Or what used to be a mechanic. His blue coveralls were stiff with dried blood. He stood there, swaying. His eyes were black voids, wide and dead. His jaw hung slack, wet with gore. He saw Jed. He made a wet, coughing sound. His mouth gorged open. A chunk of fleshy matter fell from his lips to the pavement. Then he ran. He didn't shamble. He didn't stumble. He launched himself across the lot with terrifying athletic speed. "No!" Jed roared. He burst back toward the fueling vehicle. The creature countered him. It cut across the angle. It was faster than Henderson. It was hunting. Jed realized he wasn't going to beat it to the door. The creature jumped. It smashed into Jed just as he reached the pump. It slammed him backward against the steel housing. The impact knocked the wind out of him. The creature was on him instantly. Pinning him, it snapped its teeth, lunging for Jed's face. It screeched a dark, hollow noise, the sound of a stretched throat and a broken jaw. Jed gagged at the smell, rotting meat and old oil. He brought the tire iron up. He smashed it into the side of the creature's head. Crack! The sound of bone giving way was sickeningly wet. The creature staggered back, its head lulled to the side. It screeched again, clawing at the air. Jed didn't wait. He ripped the nozzle from the tank, spraying gasoline over the pavement. He jumped into the driver's seat. He slammed the door just as bloody hands slapped against the glass. They scratched violently, leaving streaks of red grease. Chloe was screaming. Her hands were over her ears. "Hold on!" Jed floored it. The Land Cruiser roared. Tires spun on the gas-slicked concrete before catching traction. The creature kept pace. It lunged. It grabbed onto the rear bumper. Its fingernails screeched against the metal. He swerved hard to the right. He threw the back end of the truck toward a concrete barrier at the lot's exit. The impact was brutal. The creature was thrown loose, tumbling across the asphalt. Jed watched in the rearview mirror as they sped away. His gut sank. The thing wasn't dead. It was already scrambling back to its feet. It began sprinting down the center of the highway after them, relentless. Its broken jaw hung loose. His heart tried to hammer its way out of his chest. He looked at the fuel gauge. Half a tank. "That has to be enough," he whispered. "From Price to Dead Horse Point. It has to be." The travel did not make sense anymore. Time was dissolving. They navigated the 2-lane highway to Green River. They pushed the truck as fast as the winding roads would allow. The sun was dipping lower. It cast long, menacing shadows across the desert floor. They hit the town of Green River. It was a ghost town. Fires burned unattended in the fields. Jed turned south onto Highway 191, the road to Moab. The fuel gauge dropped. Then, the warning light. Ahead, the turnoff for Highway 313 appeared, the road to Dead Horse Point. It was marked by the massive, life-size dinosaur statues of the Moab Giants Museum, and that was where the ambush happened. As they slowed for the turn, movement erupted from the museum parking lot. Tourists, families, hikers, all of them turned. They swarmed the road, drawn by the sound of the engine. There were hundreds of them. "Head down!" Jed yelled. He didn't brake, he accelerated. The Land Cruiser plowed into the mass, bodies thumped against the heavy steel bumper. The truck shuddered violently. A spiderweb crack bloomed on the windshield as a body hit the glass. Tires were slick with blood. They sped up the long incline toward the mesa top. But the horde didn't stop. Jed looked in the rear view. They were running. Dead Horse Point State Park, 10 miles. The road climbed. Switchbacks, steep grades. The engine roared, straining against the incline. Behind him, far back, running figures. Some took shortcuts, scaling the hillside, cutting the switchbacks. They were sprinting as if they had won gold medals at the Olympics. They were targeted on the sound of the vehicle. His heart hammered as he looked at the gas needle. It was buried below the E. He took a chance and floored it. He felt it was better to put as much distance as possible between them and those chasing. The first pale tones of night were already overtaking the landscape. The views were beautiful and stunning. Red rock canyons dropping away into blue infinity. They blew past the park entrance station. Looking in the rear view, he could not see the zombies. A sigh of relief escaped his lips. Then, the engine sputtered. It coughed once. Twice, the power steering died. The heavy truck became a dead weight. They rolled to a silent stop right in front of the abandoned visitor center. Jed grabbed his daughter out of the car. A park sign ahead read, "Dead Horse Point Overlook in the Neck. 1 mile ahead." "Run, Chloe, run!" They began running up the asphalt. The light in the sky was fading fast, purple bruising into black. As they crested the next hill, they saw it in the distance. The narrow strip of sandstone connecting the main mesa to the island in the sky. Floodlights cut through the gloom. They illuminated the scene like a stage. Motorhomes were lined up bumper to bumper, men with rifles pacing the roofs. And then they heard it. Behind them, screeches, heavy gurgling in the distance. The zombies were coming. They were still tracking. And now, seeing the prey, they sped up. Jed picked up his daughter. She was struggling to run in terror. Her legs were failing her. He felt outside his body, like a dream where you are running through molasses. He waved his free arm frantically. He could hear the men on the barricade shouting and pointing guns. "Hold fire! Civilians!" The zombies closed the distance. He could hear their feet slapping the pavement behind him. A middle-aged woman with half her face ripped off was snapping her jaw right behind Chloe's dangling calf. Crack! The zombie's head exploded. Black spray misted the air. One of the men on the point's barricade had taken the shot. 1 football field left. Jed was surrounded. Bullets were flying everywhere now, putting down the zombies closest to him. Up on one of the campers, a woman in a red jacket was screaming. She was ecstatic, waving her arms. "Jed!" It was Lily. He saw her. He and his daughter regained a surge of joy and strength. Officer Young, the man clearly in charge, emerged at the edge of the barricades holding the detonator. "Clear the lane! Blow it as soon as he crosses!" There were at least 100 zombies behind Jed now. He had led them here with the engine. He had to make the gap. 10! Brody called out. "Run!" his wife yelled. Hands were over her mouth. Bullets flew past Jed's head. Just as he thought he was going to be overtaken by 5 sprinting figures, 2 men ran past the barricade with assault rifles. They unleashed a wall of suppressive fire. It shredded the front line of the horde. 3! Jed burst onto the neck, the narrow piece of sandstone connecting the worlds. 2! He slid under one of the motorhomes being used as a barricade and covered Chloe's head. 1. Officer Young twisted the key to detonate the C4. The world turned white. The sound was not a noise. It was a physical blow. 20 zombies were caught in the huge blast as the neck of the point crumbled. The rock sheared away. It fell thousands of feet to the canyon floor below. A massive cloud of red dust billowed up. It created a natural barricade between them and the now crowds of arriving, starving zombies on the opposite ledge. His head was ringing. Everything was in slow motion. Dust coated his tongue. He sat up, coughing. Lily smashed into them. She hit them with the force of a tackle, embracing them, crying and sobbing into Jed's neck and pulling Chloe into her. "Oh God, you made it." It was a miracle, as they later would all recall. How could one family, separated by hundreds of miles, survive and end up in the same place. And Jed knew it was because of God. He had his hand in this. Jed stood up, helping his family. He walked to the edge of the new cliff. He looked at the chasm. 50 feet of empty air now separated them from the mainland. On the other side, the horde had stopped. Thousands of them lined the ledge. They stared across the gap with dead, hungry eyes. Officer Young joined him, still holding the detonator. "Do you think they can starve to death? Maybe we can just wait them out," Jed asked him. "Well, I guess we'll find out. Either they will, or we will. All we have now is time." A new community of 103 people, 1 baby, 3 dogs, and the hope that they could find a way to rejoin the world someday. That they could build a bridge back across. That they could restart the world. Jed looked at the fires being lit in oil drums. He looked at the stars coming out over the canyon. As far as Jed knew, this little group of people, living on an island in the sky, could be the last people alive on the planet. But he didn't care. He knew he was guided here. He knew in the days to come, in this new world, God had a purpose for them and for tonight. That was all that mattered. That was Island in the Sky, written and performed by the author, me, James Cawley. We spend so much of our lives believing in the permanence of things, our neighborhoods, our routines, the safety of a locked door. But this story reminds us that when the facade cracks, the only thing that truly holds weight is the hand you are holding. There is a haunting peace in that final image. A tiny civilization on a mesa, cut off from the ruin below. It suggests that sometimes salvation isn't about saving the whole world. It's about carving out a small, untouchable piece of it for yourself. My name is James Cawley, and you're listening to Dust and Echoes. If you like stories like this, stories that accelerate into the apocalypse and find a quiet, breathless beauty at the edge of the abyss, then you're in the right place. Let me know which story has been your favorite and what you'd like to hear more of. Reach out to me on Instagram. Just search for Dust and Echoes Podcast and you'll find me. I respond to every message personally, and I'd love to connect. I hope my stories are something you look forward to each week. I really appreciate you listening. Next week I'll be back with another one, and I'll have an exciting update that you won't want to miss. Until next time, remember this: sanctuary is not just a place you run to. It often requires sacrifice and faith, a bridge you are willing to burn to keep the darkness out.